Hi everyone, and welcome to this month's Grid Talk. We're focused on accelerating project delivery across the UK rail industry, and delighted to be joined by Network Rail for this session. Right, there's quite a bit to go through, so I'll kick off and just run through a few things. Obviously see quite a few familiar faces, but just for those that are new to Grid Talk, it's something for us that was really important about how we give back to our kind of community, which is just helping sharing best practice on capability development in sort of P3M and professional services. For those that are new to Livestorm, guys, just please, it's Grid Talk by name and nature, so please, chat with us, ask questions, and use the chat throughout the session, and there'll be time for questions at the end of the session. Just while I have your attention, we run a Grid Talk every month. We also do 2 live events a year. So the next one that we're running in March is more focused on how to unlock knowledge IP asset value. And there's a few kind of collaborators and sort of industry experts that are joining us on that. It's really just focusing on how PS firms can build knowledge-based IP and the value of that for especially the sort of scaling successful businesses. So that's in March on the 28th. I think Tom will be putting that in the chat. So if it's of interest, guys, please register now. Introductions. So I'm Pip. I'm head of professional services for Method Grid, and Mike. Mike, if you want to give yourself a short introduction.
Thanks, Pip. I've just noticed you've got my job title wrong. Mike Wright, yeah. I'm Program Management Director at Network Rail.
So guys, very quickly, I'm going to spend probably no more than 5 minutes just helping you understand what we do, just so you've got context of what we're going to get into when we look at Pace Digital and sort of acceleration of project delivery. The primary thing we care about at Method Grid is helping organisations just reduce cost of poor quality that comes from inconsistent project service delivery. I'm sure if you all work in professional services, I won't go through 1 to 8, but if you look across those pain symptoms, I'd say most people we speak to, they resonate with, especially kind of reinventing the wheel and sort of helping teams be more effective, more consistent is, well, it's an industry challenge. It doesn't matter what sector you're in, it's always going to be a challenge. The way we boil it down to the so what is, one is around, you've got to help people. If you want to reduce cost of poor quality, you have to provide clarity on method. So giving people a framework in which they can use to execute delivery. Whether that is, 5 PowerPoint slides versus a massive full-blown SharePoint, I think everyone will struggle with the challenge of compliance. So making sure that people can evidence that they're compliant and your method and your standards are being applied in delivery. There's probably a bit more about compliance, which is helping teams actually tailor and right size your methodology so that it's actually practical and helps them, rather than, if it's too rigid or static, it's very difficult for teams to take ownership of that methodology. You can have the best method in the world, but if you're not prepared to equip your people, train them, give them the assets, the training, the knowledge they need when they need it, it can be very difficult for people to have the actual confidence to step up to it and apply it. So people capability is key, but also helping people work as a kind of community of practice, helping improving ways of working is also key. And then regardless, I'd say kind of any knowledge worker based process, human process, where it's complex and you need to navigate that journey through it, there are always going to be kind of residual risk that comes with that, and there'll always be audit and assurance that are required to support that process. So kind of questions we look for is, are people really clear on what the standards are, what evidence is needed, but also how well is the kind of audit and assurance role embedded into the team? Is it kind of spare wheel, they just annoy you trying to find information, or is it no, that they're fully integrated with ways of working in the team and helping them work out and improve delivery confidence? So that's the kind of the problem statement we framed. The technology platform we wanted to build to try and help solve this problem is probably, I'm not going to go into it, I think we'll see it later in the demo in the session, but what we wanted to focus on was really helping organizations build a kind of library of digital playbooks that sort of articulate to people that this is how you execute through and navigate through this process, the end-to-end process, whether it's projects, procurement, staff onboarding. Essentially, we want to help knowledge workers navigate complex problems and solutions. The key concept is you build that playbook, but once you've built it, you can then clone it and give it to the individual team, the manager who's going to follow that process. And that becomes kind of a project-specific instance of that playbook, which teams can then assign, they can track delivery, they can collaborate and chat. And if I'm honest, the biggest thing that unlocks is the kind of psychology to compliance, which is giving teams something that they can tailor and right size. You know, you can't, methods will be 80%. What we wanted to say as well, how can they tailor that and right size it, have a conversation with a client and right size the playbook for them. The other aspect of the platform, once you're using playbooks to do delivery, is, we added in the standard basics of stage gates, stage boundaries. You can build those. And also you can specify kind of what tasks need evidence. So you can say, look, yeah, tick it off, but I need to see the evidence. And then that's just super helpful for kind of audit assurance and kind of building confidence that we're navigating through this playbook correctly. I'd say those three building blocks are the kind of functional bits. The kind of bit we was a bit of a surprise for us, but it's a fantastic surprise, was because teams were kind of vested in the playbook, it was something that they were using and it was really valuable for them. What we found, the kind of behavior was that teams were much more proactive in trying to improve the kind of master playbook. It was something now that they could connect with and say, well, we want to improve the template. We don't understand this particular sort of process. Can we add more detail? Can we add e-learning? Can we, who's the expert that I can speak to? So what we found was that teams were actually much more proactive in trying to improve ways of working, because the simple rule being, the next project they get, they'll benefit as they'll get a clone of the master playbook. So it's really tried to make it easier to kind of enable that kind of continuous improvement for improving ways of working. Cool. And yeah, a little bit about us, and we'll crack on. But yeah, all we really, what we're passionate about, what we care about, is just really helping teams improve how they deliver projects and services. And we're very lucky to have some fantastic clients. It's a very privileged sort of opportunity for us. Right, Mike, I think for this session, I thought we'd just give a bit of background to sort of the genesis of PACE, kind of what the problem was, and we'll talk about some of the kind of design principles, and then we'll go into kind of its digital journey and probably what the future holds.
Absolutely, so, sounds good.
If you want to give a bit of background context to sort of the origins of it.
Yeah, absolutely. That's really useful to give that context. I mean, this journey for us started in 2020 in the midst of COVID. It actually really started with Boris Johnson, then Prime Minister's commitment to build back better, where he set out 3 strategic priorities that were actually fundamental to the government at that time to economic recovery of the UK. And one of those was investment in infrastructure. A real firm belief that by investing in infrastructure, we'd improve the economic outturn of the country, which is fantastic for an industry like Network Rail. I noticed from some other infrastructure industries on this call as well. That came, though, with a real challenge. So we were given a very clear challenge from his office at 10 Downing Street, which was, we're committed to investing in new Network Rail, and the but is you need to do things significantly cheaper and significantly faster. So as a business and working with the Department for Transport, we launched our response to that, which is what we call Project Speed. And Project Speed at its heart was about setting out to to say, quite an ambitious challenge, actually, how do we halve the time and how do we halve the cost of project delivery? How do we deliver better outcomes, whether that be for us, train performance, safety, et cetera, to the taxpayer, to people getting on, using trains day in, day out. We did that really fundamentally at the start by working with 16 of our major projects and programs, and we asked them, say, come back to us, tell us in a month's time how you're going to deliver your project in half the time, half the cost. And if you can't do that, tell us why, tell us what's blocking you, tell us what's getting in your way. One of the big things that came out of that exercise was our project management framework at the time, which was called GRIP, Governance of Railway Investment Projects, and a really clear ask from the business to say, actually, go away, relook at how we deliver projects and implement an approach which is more flexible, allows us to have much more control over making the right decisions in the right way at the right time. And that launched us into replacing GRIP with PACE, which is what we're going to speak a little bit about today in the context of the work we've done with Method Grid.
I think, yeah, so Mike, yeah, I wonder if you sort of just kind of GRIP versus PACE, but kind of what were the kind of key kind of design sort of principles that kind of came out of that, really, or shaped the design of it?
Absolutely. I'll talk sort of briefly to the points you've got on the slide here. Project classification, really for us, that was about saying anything we do in project delivery has got to be scalable and proportionate. Within the rail industry, we deliver a massive diversity of projects, ranging from the things we do day in, day out, every day of the week, hundreds of times a year. They're small, the risk is understood, through to actually multi-decade investments where, and we've got things like the TransPennine upgrade programme, which is in excess of £1 billion of investment. So anything we do has got to be fit for purpose for everything across that. So we looked at how we understand the risk and complexity of our projects, and the first thing we did was make sure that PACE was scalable. So it didn't provide too much burden of governance and bureaucracy for those smaller projects. We wanted them to be agile and fleet of foot, but also scaled up well to control those much longer, much more politically driven investments where we needed a much more rigorous level of control. We needed to build on best practice. When GRIP was originally written, it was founded in industry best practice, but actually we're in an industry that's constantly changing, constantly learning. So actually that step back, what can we do differently? And we benchmarked against a number of other comparator industries across the world to see what they did, what worked well for them, what didn't, and really make sure that we took that best practice into the life cycle. Touched on it being flexible really under project classification, but the other point here is it can't be a paint by numbers process. A lot of project life cycles across different industries become a bit of a, if I paint this box blue, this one green, if I follow step one, step two, I deliver a good project. In any project industry, most of us will be familiar with following the process doesn't necessarily mean a good project. We had lots of compliant projects that were spending too much money and still taking too long to deliver. So we wanted to put decision making right at the heart of the project itself, allowing our sponsors, our engineers, our project managers to make the right decisions of what they would do and what they wouldn't do to deliver their project effectively. Links really nicely into focused accountability, how we were structured in terms of governance and our controls and policies around PACE's predecessor. Was that was my job. It assumed, it's a model that assumed Mike knows best. Mike will never know best in our portfolio that at the time was around £5 billion a year, £5,000 million, thousands of projects a year. We really want to put that accountability back to the people who can really affect change and make the right decision for the business. So as well as giving the sponsors and project managers the flexibility, we also gave them the accountability so that they really had to make sure they were making the right decision in the right way. And ultimately that is all about empowerment. It's about giving more control back to our project teams. The image I've painted when I've spoken to this with our stakeholders on that is our old approach was kind of like how we might have done planned a journey 20 years ago. You'd have got out your printed AA map and plotted what looked like your best course from, say, London to Birmingham. PACE is much more like if you go onto Google Maps or Apple Maps. It gives you multiple ways to get from point A to B. And in the map example, there's probably 3 ways to drive, 3 ways to walk, 3 ways of public transport. Pace said there is no right answer to get from A to B. Actually, as a project team, use your knowledge and experience to plot that path, to work the best way through it. You know your stakeholders best, whether they be your end users, your funders, you know the environment, whether that be the geographical or technical environment you're working in best. Therefore, we want you to be empowered to make those decisions and to drive your project forward. In all, it's a balance of enabling our projects to accelerate, but also making sure that we do that with the right level of control in place to protect the overall portfolio.
And Mike, it's kind of that behaviour. Was that probably the harder challenge? That kind of sort of giving that freedom, or the behavioural shift to give the individuals that kind of that freedom and that accountability.
Yeah. I mean, 100%. I mean, writing the original process itself was a couple of weeks' work locked away at Christmas, because we'd made a commitment to HM Treasury that we'd publish on the 3rd or 4th of January, whatever the first working day back was. So developing the process, I mean, that's not rocket science. Project management is not in and of itself rocket science. The real change is how do you take people on that journey from an industry where everything was delivered by following policy and process. You never got sacked for following a standard and a process, but now those processes give you much more remit to make your own decision. People need the psychological safety to do that. They need to feel, actually, if I make the wrong decision, I'm in a business that will learn from that, not unduly chastise me for that decision and support me correct things. And that was really important. That does take a lot longer. What we saw very early on, we had some projects that really embraced the principles of speed. I mean, 4 years later, it's embedding very well across the business. It's embedding well across the wider industry, but there will remain a lot of work to do. Where Network Rail's between 35 and 40,000 people. We've got 20-odd thousand people in our supply chain. You don't drive that culture, that mindset change overnight. So we're really committed. In fact, just going into our next 5-year control period, that mindset and people and culture aspect is one of our top priorities for focus over the next 5 years to continue to drive that. But in one respect, we've got some numbers on the slide there. The numbers start speaking for themselves. We've, through the overall speed programme the last 3 years, we've handed back £1.5 billion worth of efficiency in our project portfolio, and just this move to pace alone, giving that more flexibility, more localised decision making, has enabled £323 million of efficiency to be taken out of our projects, and at a much higher number cost avoidance going into our next 5-year period.
I suppose, Mike, the kind of next control period is probably it'll be predominantly pace, because obviously the grip, some projects will still be using grip while new ones are on pace. Is the new control period it's probably the first fully pace enabled control period.
Absolutely. So a lot of our plans going into the next 5-year period are already taken costs out because of pace. So they're working to a sort of a post efficient baseline. And we're now looking, as part of the work we're doing ourselves, actually, how do we improve that efficiency opportunity? How do we deliver a greater return on the investment across the portfolio? But yeah, it'll be a very much pace-driven portfolio.
Yeah, cool. I don't know, you want to elaborate on that? I know pace was built at pace, but it's kind of the assets probably. I think you kind of alluded to us when we first started the conversation. The challenge of trying to communicate the method out to the range, not only just the sheer numbers of employees, but also kind of how do you enable the supply chain to access that information?
Yeah, absolutely.
Pain points and feeling.
Yeah, I mean, we've made some improvements over the year, but we're still in a place where it was a real challenge. I mean, when I inherited grip over a decade ago, if you printed it off, you needed to print it in A3 paper to even be able to read the list of things you needed to do to deliver a project. And it was something in the scale of sort of 9-10 A3 sheets long. It was hundreds and hundreds of things. So one of the first things we did was actually simplify it. And that's where what Pace's foundation it really took from grip was, it's not thousands of things. What are the most critical things? And I think the current situation has somewhere between 65 and 70 key deliverables on it. But actually, we were holding those in an Excel spreadsheet. A lot of them were closed behind sort of network rail, IT firewalls and that, so they weren't easily accessible by our supply chain. It wasn't accessibility from a real practical point of view, actually. People who had different needs in terms of accessing those, whether that be visual impairments or what have you. So that was one of the big drivers to working with yourselves. How do we deploy this across a much bigger community, which was critical for us going into CP7. Our current control period, CP6, Network Rail, primarily had the role of project manager, but we've gone into much deeper enterprise models, ways of working. For those who are familiar, it's the Project 13 type model, where actually in many instances now across our business, our supply chain partners are working in enterprise with us. They are project managing and in many instances program and portfolio managing on our behalf. So again, how do we break down those boundaries, get it off of Excel, get it from out behind internal firewalls and make it truly accessible to anyone in the industry who needs to use it, learn from it, and improve how we deliver projects with it?
Yeah, I think it was super helpful. This I think came from kind of Network Rail's kind of target operating model. It was really helpful for us when we started thinking about how best we design the kind of platform solution to fix it. But kind of gone through it, the kind of challenges kind of industry scale size or enterprise organizations face is that kind of the sheer size of the workforce, supply chain. It's a very diverse portfolio, and that ability to swiftly kind of communicate changes at that scale is significantly challenged when it's a spreadsheet and it's kind of a SharePoint and it's hard to get access to. I think I kind of summarized it. Really, it boils down to is how we effectively implement an effective 3 lines of defense at industry scale. I think I've done this with a few people, and I kind of say, well, look, I think everyone always knows you'll have the 3rd line of defense put in because stakeholders or kind of shareholders kind of demand it, that you manage risk in the firm. But I'm amazed at sometimes just how many holes people don't do the basics, like the process isn't written down, the controls aren't defined for the process, but everyone's got line 3, but lines 1 and 2 tend to be fairly patchy, and that's the kind of the big challenge. So coming on to the kind of solution and the sort of build, and guys, we'll show you kind of the first phase of it and what kind of the key components of the platform are. So I suppose, Mike, the first bit for us was the kind of national playbook, which basically gives everyone it's an open public resource now, but it gives the industry access to PACE as a digital playbook that they can access and use. And that gives just people, look, here's all the knowledge, information, who's the expert, who you can speak to, here's the templates that you can use. So kind of meets probably that first challenge of just making that information accessible to everyone.
Yeah, the other bit I'd pull out on there, I mean, it's much more than just sort of the templates and things, isn't it? Actually, one of the real drives and where we've had a massive amount of value from your team is actually how do we increase also the knowledge, that information, the stuff that really helps people do these things. And I'm sure we'll see some of that if we jump into the platform as well. Yeah, sure.
So Tom, I don't know if Tom's just online. I think Tom is going to put the link to to PACE, like the public resource, in the chat, guys. So please, follow that link, embed it. But I can switch. I mean, here we go. Hopefully, yeah. So this is PACE, which is now a publicly available website. And as Mike called out, we wanted to make sure that kind of the information about the method would be accessible to everyone. So, here are the different PACE. I'm going to try and, here's the PACE sort of stages, like the different stages, you can see those when we describe each stage. We put in the different kind of stage gates, the kind of PRR reviews, you can have a look at those, what milestones, what's the exit criteria, what evidence is required at each gate. And then, if you've never done a kind of sponsor's instruction or a client remit, teams now can access it and to to your point, Mike, it was really how do we kind of build out the kind of knowledge content that helps people navigate this journey, which is, here's a description, this is when you produce it, here's a video explainer that tells you why it's important and what's the impact of not doing it. Here's the key activities, the national template, key objectives, some best practice examples, the kind of quality criteria. I think if Emma's on the call, we kind of wanted to make applicability, like, so how the kind of standards are articulated and if it's mandatory or regulatory, just making that really crystal clear for people to be able to access, right down to kind of the kind of racy, the format composition. Probably the other one, Mike, I don't know, the standards library was probably another kind of how do we make the standards more accessible was a kind of key challenge as well.
Absolutely. Again, encourage anyone on the link to go up and explore how we've done some of that. But one of our big challenges there was, as a business, we've got, into the thousands, technical standards, engineering standards, our project program management standards. It's a great resource, but it's a very hard resource to actually access and therefore use and apply and add value. So a big part of what we've done on here, working with the team, is absolutely translating that information, making it accessible, making it usable to people.
Yeah. I don't know if I click, I think it will take me to it. Yeah. So if you click on a standard, what we wanted to sort of elaborate, really, there's the PDF, which kind of, we wanted to make sure that all of the standard kind of informations and the kind of other supporting documents that support those standards can be accessed through kind of one element. But this gives you a kind of summary of the standard. There's a video explainer that gives you more context about it. And then if you do need to access the PDF, you can get it here. And for the more complicated standards that have multiple modules, like level 3 detail, they'll be listed under here. And then you can seamlessly navigate back to which playbook these standards refer to and what deliverables they're kind of related to. And that is now just making it really accessible. So, there's probably no paywall, Mike, now behind kind of just ensuring that people can have access to that information.
Yeah, that's really important to us. I mean, it's with our funders, with our supply chain partners, we need to be working together to drive down costs, to be more efficient. And if we start locking away our own good practice and don't learn from each other and don't give people access to information, we're not going to do that. So yeah, absolutely, remove those paywalls, remove the issues, and give everyone unfettered access wherever possible.
Cool. So that for everyone's context, that's what we, if you hear us in the team, we'll call that PACE National, kind of a national playbook that gives everyone access to your methodology. The next oops, well, navigate. The next building block is what we call PACE Local. And we launched PACE National in January, and obviously, Mike, we're still very much on the kind of comms rollout of just making sure that everyone understands how to access PACE National. We've now started the conversations with regions about the kind of PACE Local scenario. I'll kind of illustrate how this works, but the national playbook will give you access to PACE. What PACE Local is okay, well, I've got the national playbook, but I want to now clone that and tailor that and right size it for my region. Because there's other bits of process that might need to be added to make the playbook usable. Regions might have specific requirements in how they operate. There might be specific local kind of approval decisions that need to be put in place to be able to access and make PACE applicable and traceable within each region. So PACE Local allows them to access PACE, the national playbook, and then tailor and right size it. But then they can use the full features of the platform to be able to clone the playbook and then start to track compliance on individual projects. But I kind of, Mike, it is that probably the ethos, which is, giving them the accountability and empowerment to be able to, okay, well, great, here's PACE, but now I can definitely tailor and right size it. I don't need stage. I'm consolidating these two stages. We don't need these deliverables, and being able to take ownership and right size the playbook for each individual, I think is probably heart of what we're trying to achieve as a business, but also very akin to kind of the principles of PACE.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, we operate across 5 devolved regions. They've got full accountability for their performance, their project portfolio. I mean, they do things differently. They work differently. Very different commercial models. What they get from Pace National is the baseline, the expected level of control, and some of that remains mandated down to them. What local really gives them is, absolutely as you say, it's that ability to not deviate from things they have to do, but bring in their own best practice, adapt to make sure it fits their local needs, and therefore strikes that really useful balance between no longer just being a policy and an edict of you must do, but becomes a useful tool that guides on how to do, and importantly why they have to do it.
So if I think I can switch back. I'll just show you, because I know a few clients have asked us how they access it. So let me go here, so I'll come out. So this is kind of method grid for those that aren't familiar with it. So this is a kind of the store. So if I want to clone and do either Praxis, or if I want to use Pace and I want to use Pace as the base of my playbook, I can click and ask the platform to create me an editable version of Pace. I'm not going to do it because it'll take about 45 seconds. But here's one I prepared earlier. So I think it's just in my library. So, sorry, I'm just looking at the other screen. So, here is now a cloned version of that Pace playbook. But naturally now I've got a few more features that would allow me to start using this and assigning it to teams. So, I can edit it. We can remove certain deliverables. We can adjust things and move things around. But the main feature is, okay, this is now my project. Who in my team am I assigning work to, and being able to sort of track delivery, and that so teams can start to tick things off. I can upload evidence onto the playbook, and it becomes the kind of project manager's guidebook as they execute and prosecute the project. But very much we're allowing them to tailor and right size Pace for them, but they've got access to what the rules are and the guidance needed when they need it. Cool. Let me get back. Michael, you're on mute.
I was speaking to myself on mute for a minute then. I was saying that point you made there about enabling them to execute in the local version is absolutely the right emphasis, because we need this to be a useful management tool that people want to engage with, because it helps them deliver projects better. The tangential benefit then is, because we're doing things in a single system, we've got, through the Method Apps platform, a much greater level of control and therefore assurance of that data. So yeah, primarily our push on this is around how does it make the project manager's life easier, not please use this system for assurance purposes. So yeah, that's a really sort of mindset culture thing, and it's what's great about the platform you've developed, is I think it really helps us sell it on making life easier for projects day to day.
Yeah, there's a few sort of the kind of final part, Mike, and I think we maybe cover some of this in questions, but there's some key enablers that we kind of want to put in place to build out to make sure the platform kind of delivers on that kind of 3 lines of defense. Obviously, maybe we'll talk about the academy concept later, about how we think we can actually integrate e-learning and training into the playbook as well. So it does really help users acquire the knowledge they need as they're in execution. Probably the big thing, Mike, we had to do was make sure we met the kind of accessibility standards. I think to meet the kind of government set standards as a public resource, so we kind of tick that box. I think standards digitalization is still going to go. There's still more to do in that space, but I think probably the first bit is we've just massively helped people access those standards and make them relevant to the process where they're needed. I think was the first kind of key connection that we felt we could do in the first iteration. And then obviously I think longer term we're looking at the kind of AI enablement, like lessons learned. How do we access and provide people access to that information where AI can, as you're using it in delivery, it can say, look, what hazards do I need to be aware of? What lessons are relevant to me? And just connecting it to different data sources to help teams in delivery. And the final, I'm sure some of our clients are on, we've always talked about the kind of assurance module, which is, you know, how do we can we do an audit and assurance review on a particular project and capture its delivery confidence of how it's progressing through the life cycle. So I think when we've delivered on some of those key aspects, I think that from a solution perspective, we're quite confident that that's going to kind of digitalize the kind of 3 lines of defense for an organization. Guys, I think you know, Michael, I think the one other thing we wanted to hold in this session was just the opportunity to have kind of a number of set questions. We thought it'd be kind of an interesting topic. So, I mean, guys, please feel free now to throw your questions in. I know sometimes there can be a bit of lag of people trying to think it through, but probably Mike, what would be interesting is, yeah, where in terms of like the concept of PACE digital, kind of where do you kind of see the roadmap and kind of vision for the future?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one of the things that we were really encouraged about in our engagement with yourselves originally when we were looking at doing this was the fact that we didn't have to do everything at once. You built a solid platform which is modular, enables us to build capability over time. So actually, from a business perspective, it's been great to do what we've done, and really exciting to start thinking about what we can now do as we're rolling that out and embedding it. Because we can learn from some of your other client use case studies as much as we hope they'll be able to learn from what we're doing. So one of the really important things for me is actually how can we consolidate some of the places our project managers and sponsors go to? I've worked in a number of industries, and they're all very similar in that actually accessing the right information in a single place is often seen as a bit of an unachievable nirvana. We've got SharePoint sites, hub sites, websites, we've got document management systems. The more we can consolidate. So one of the big things for me is actually how can we integrate learning into this as well. So if I'm using this as a project manager, maybe I'm working on a scheme for the first time that requires a full business case in accordance with sort of the HMT's Green Book. Actually, I go into PACE, it tells me when I do that business case, it gives me the templates, it gives me some knowledge and information to help me do that. It gives me the links off to relevant sites today. Would it be great if I could also access the more formal learning development interventions? So one of the things we're obviously talking about is actually how do we integrate e-learning into this platform? So it's a point of access for people. They need to know something. They can click on a button, they can access it there and then. There's no separate need to go off and find the learning and development site and subscribe to something and wait for someone to approve it. It becomes a point of need. So that single environment is really important for me, just making it easier for people. The other bit I'm really excited on, and you touched it around some sort of the AI integration, is how can we actually use the platform itself to start learning more. Where we've got a huge library we've opened up to our supply chain partners and others around our lessons learned. But actually, how can we use AI to actually learn from that lessons library to help inform what's on the grid, to give people useful hints and advice about how they should approach things? And I think that's a bit longer term, and it's great to be talking about that, great to be looking at that functionality. So yeah, I mean, we've got a number of things on that pipeline that we'll be discussing, that we'll be implementing, but the principal one is what I've touched on. It's a single point of use. If I'm delivering a project in the rail industry, this is where I can go to access the standards, the processes, the governance, the controls, the learning, the development support I need as an individual, which just makes it a really practical, useful place for people to go to help them do their jobs.
Yeah, I think the e-learning one is what we've seen, the kind of the trend and interest in, Mike. I think you kind of call it out. I can go the competency route, like I join the business, I need these competencies, I do the training, and it's kind of, but then I'm thrown into a delivery environment, and and that's 6 months ago, and I can't remember that course, but I knew it was interesting, but now I'm asked to do it. Well, how easy is it now for me to navigate back to be able to access that learning? I don't need the full course, but I do need to quickly refresh myself on X and refresh myself on Y. And if I'm like lost at sea and trying to search through kind of LMS and try and navigate to it, we were like, well, actually, when an individual feels that pain point and need it, well, actually, how do we make that really accessible and open to kind of meet that need? I think the other one, probably more expressed with the kind of more senior consultants, like in the PS world, they're kind of like, I'm tired of constantly telling graduates or entry-level roles, look, this is how you do something. And, I'm constantly or I get so frustrated I have to just do it myself. And it's kind of like, well, how do we, if we can enable training and point them and direct them, then essentially we become more kind of productive, but we're given the assets to enable the people to be able to give it a go, I think is the first bit, rather than, where's the training resources, don't have the time to do it, I end up just doing it myself, which is kind of a real productivity waste that some clients feel. Cool. A few questions. I think they're more for Mike. The project risk classification, how does it fit into it? I think I could probably advise this, Mike. Now I've become a bit of a PACE expert. I think one of the kind of key deliverables in the first stage of PACE is to do a project complexity assessment, which is a very well crafted spreadsheet that looks at sort of 12 key categories of risk which teams fill in and complete, and then based on that kind of assessment there's a much more kind of conversation with the sponsor about, okay, well, now we know the level of risk, we know what options can apply to us in terms of PACE and governance, and that really is the first probably deliverable that helps the teams work out how they can start to tailor and right size the playbook for the project. So the risk classification is actually built in as its own product deliverable. I should give you this feedback, Mike. I think you've probably amputated a few clients in terms of what good looks like. I mean, the PACE playbook, with kind of, I'm sure a number of people are looking at it. It's probably one of the best playbooks we've engineered and built in sort of collaboration with you guys. But Arup's Maps is certainly up there. Amy's Atlas, WWA's kind of Compass platform. They're all very, very good. But I think you've certainly set the bar very high in terms of this is terms of how you codify methodology. Probably sort of, in some ways the PS firms are like, oh, some of your IP is probably a bit better than what we currently provide for people. So, but it is a like fantastic build.
Yeah, I love
it. So just going through some of the questions, I'm going to start from the bottom. So that's project classification question. Are there integration features with MethodGrid? Yes, we fully integrate with sort of 365, so SharePoint, and probably Mike, you kind of alluded to it. We're probably trying to be the platform that just sits on top of the underlying systems that are needed to navigate complex project delivery. So, and it constantly comes up, so how do you integrate with SharePoint? How could you make our lives easier with Bentley? It's just trying to integrate with those systems to make it much easier for teams to navigate that complex capital project delivery environment. We do integrate with, you can share data with the platform into Power BI and Teams. It can be embedded into Teams. Here's one. Hi, Mike. Have you seen any evidence yet of the supply chain starting to access kind of national PACE resources?
Yeah, I mean, we've had some really positive feedback from the supply chain. We've been doing a number of briefing meetings like this that are aimed more at sort of our direct internal users and our supply chain partners, which we've had some really positive uptake on. So yeah, that's positive, and we will be doing a lot more, and certainly doing some joint events with the Rail Industry Association as well to help get that out there.
Cool. How do you get to the region-specific pages? I think we're at the moment where we are right now is we've built PACE National, and we're just making sure that everyone's aware of that and understands it. I think we're in conversations with all of the regions about working through whether PACE Local is a good fit for them, and just working through, okay, what's the priority and how that works through. And I think so far we've had very positive kind of engagement and feedback, but PACE Local is will probably be more available across the regions later in the year. There's a few pilots that we're undertaking with the kind of Restore Your Railway program. There's a few other kind of interesting pilots, and really that's just making sure we're fully happy and confident in terms of how Pace Local works before it becomes massively scalable. Don't know, Mike, if you want to add anything on kind of Pace Local.
I mean, all I was going to add, I was actually typing it in answer to one of the other questions from Tom, actually. I mean, you covered most of it. We're doing some pilots at the moment. We're doing some pilots on one of our portfolios called Restoring Your Railway. Get a bit of a real feel for that, understand better the value full function that additional functionality gives us, and it's individual conversations with our at the moment to make sure whatever we do is right for them. So we've not fixed timescales or targets around those timescales on it. It's very much about the engagement and the need from the regions driving what that'll be. And as and when we've got more information on what that looks like, that's absolutely something we will communicate.
Cool. Is there a feature? Oh, here we go. Is there a feature to allow the PACE framework to pull together all the necessary documents required in project execution through a search instead of having to look through the individual elements? I mean, I can talk. So we're still, I mean, PACE, the PACE playbook, which is something we call Grid Live, is very in its early development, and I think there are additional features that we recognise that we're going to build out over the next couple of months. Which, you know, I think the first one for us guys is we're undertaking is making sure we can seamlessly embed e-learning. So making sure that can be accessed directly in the playbook. A few of the other features we're going to add are around enabling search. So to your point, you don't have to look at each element. You'll be able to search and find those documents, and also be able to filter. What's kind of becoming quite clear from initial feedback from users is it'd be really helpful if I could just filter out what the project manager does, what does the design engineer do, what's the sponsor's responsibility. So being able to filter the grid and it will then dynamically respond and show you what's relevant. So yeah, we'll be sort of building more features into the playbook, and we'll announce those as and when we release them. Okay. Are there different views, permissions that you can give to clients? Yeah, I didn't show it in the playbook. We can switch between what everyone gets used to is the grid view, but very quickly we can switch to a schedule view. So if you need a timeline of the playbook and want to see like an additional Gantt, you can seamlessly switch between the two views. But also, you know, the key concept of method grid is really helping you add suppliers, adding sponsors, adding other kind of users outside your organization onto the playbook to improve collaboration. So that's another kind of key aspect of Pace Local is, you know, if you do work with suppliers and you want to build a kind of integrated playbook, then you've got the ability to share and add them as specific users. That would include kind of subcontractors if you need to. Mike, how aligned is PACE with the UK Project Delivery Standard, IPA?
I can answer this very definitively, actually. So in the first year of PACE, we actually did a line-by-line breakdown of the Project Delivery Functional Standard. We took out every must-do, should-do, could-do statement and looked at that against PACE. On PACE's version 1, we had 2 gaps out of 100 odd, 200 odd statements in our standard, which have now been closed. So we're really confident that PACE and the wider framework that supports PACE is fully in line with the government functional standard. In terms of things like guidance from IPA and other sort of industry bodies, absolutely a lot of that's gone into the learning that's within PACE, and as we update and develop mature PACE over time, where we're constantly reviewing sort of lessons learned, IPA input, National Audit Office reviews, and that to make sure that we keep it tailored and effective.
Yeah, I think Mike as well. It's quite a control structure in terms of how we release changes to PACE as well, and sort of integrating kind of video explainers and sort of that to basically communicate changes as well has also kind of been sort of key for us in making sure that playbook is easily to be like maintained and relevant as we kind of learn from lessons learned. Aside from Network Rail, what other government devolved administration departments are we working with? I think Network Rail, you were the kind of first for what we call kind of Grid Live, which is that kind of national playbook. Mike, it has sort of agitated quite a bit of interest from kind of other like national infrastructure organizations that have the same challenge. I'm not going to, I think some of them may have joined some of the event. We're in early conversations about their journey onto the platform, but Sam, it's an ongoing kind of, certainly a lot of interest at the moment, and we're just working that through with a number of kind of engagements that we're managing. Has there been any sharing engagement with HS2 for them to leverage? So HS2, Mike, I don't know if, kind of the relationship between HS2 and PACE.
I mean, we've certainly shared what we've done with PACE over the last few years, with HS2, with East West Rail, and some of the other delivery bodies within the UK environment. We've not actively done anything in terms of what we've done in sharing, what we've done digitising it yet. Absolutely, that's something we'll be looking at.
I think someone's added there. The only current sort of HS2 work that we do directly is with the Mace Dragados JV. So we're used as the QMS platform for Curzon Street at the moment, which is, I think it's recently just gone live, like the QMS, and so far feedback is really positive from the teams across both partners. Cool. Tom, is there a will or work to also provide on this type of platform some more tactical level resources for project repeatable activities, e.g. booking of road closures, access, approaching service changes, new DMOs?
I mean, absolutely. We are currently looking at, I mean, a number of things. The primary one, which I actually need to pick up the phone now, I'm chatting to you about, Pip, is how do we demystify our approaches to high street working into this platform as well. So for those of you who aren't familiar, which potentially many of you, as well as PACE, we've also got another approach to working called high street working, and that's for when we're not working on the operational railway, therefore we're working in a much lower risk environment, and actually by following a different approach to delivering those projects, more akin to what you do in a high street environment, it's in the name, we can save another 30% off of our project costs. But actually, how do we make that accessible? How do we make it easy for people to use? So that's something we're going to be putting into this environment. You've given some great examples there, Tom, of things we could do. What I'd really love is if you want to reach out to me after this call, I'd love to have a chat about actually the things as well as our senior project managers that you think would really help to demystify this type of platform, and more than happy to look at how we can translate some of those into this space.
Yeah, and Mike, I mean, sort of the other kind of concept, once we've got the playbook structure working for PACE, it's kind of here's the PACE playbook, potentially, here's the procurement playbook, here's I think there's kind of interest in other kind of, here's the graduate scheme journey. There's the kind of playbook concept tends to grow arm and legs, but once you've proven it that it works and people get used to it, it's very good for that kind of, okay, what are the other kind of knowledge worker-based processes that we can provide them just to help them navigate that level of complexity. Are there any collaboration features, functionality in MG PACE, and how do you communicate with each other? I think if Emma was on the call, she would definitely advocate it. So the platform, you can see it on the top right there. So if I assign people, they get notified. We can chat and interact and collaborate. You can mention things to teams. So the platform itself helps facilitate that level of collaboration, other than just the kind of visual aspect of, look, this is where we are. And that can be kind of integrated into teams. You can get you can tailor your daily summary report. But when we built PACE, essentially the whole thing was collaboration between Method Grid team and Network Rail, and it was and all the SMEs involved in approving the content. So the platform's built to facilitate that collaboration as teams kind of navigate through that kind of complex journey. Right, I think, and then I'm just going to check, make sure there's no other questions that we've missed. No, I don't think so. I'm just checking through. No, lovely.
We've got one question around how do you measure the effectiveness of implementing this platform approach, or indeed are there metrics or broader outcomes for the project program? I can speak to a couple of bits on that. It'd be interesting to hear your thoughts as well, Pip. I mean, part of the investment case for me was a no-brainer, and I didn't need to understand in terms of tangible benefits metrics of what this would bring, because some of it is just the right thing to do. Making it openly accessible will absolutely help us create an environment where we collaborate better, communicate better, learn better together with our partners who deliver projects. So I don't need that to be measured. I need to measure the effectiveness of that at some point to make sure that we are engaging those people, getting them on the platform, getting using it. But it's a no-brainer. The bit around accessibility, I mean, as a government-funded arm's length body, we have to adhere to a really high level of accessibility standards. It needs to be usable by everyone in society. It's morally and ethically the right thing to do. Certainly once we go to the PACE local approach, we will have some very tangible, clear and measurable benefits around governance, assurance, and overall control of our projects. That the opportunity within that, the functionality that Method Grid have built for that sort of second line assurance module is phenomenal, and I think the financial efficiencies, the white collar efficiencies in that will be really significant. So yeah, absolutely, there's a moral thing, there's something, it's just clearly the right thing to do. We don't need to measure that, and as we progress, we'll identify some things that we will tangibly measure and be able to declare as very clear and realisable benefits.
Yeah, I think we normally boil it down to kind of 2 or 3 kind of key benefits, Mike. One is, you know, the standard. I think was it APQC did some research and says, look, most knowledge workers spend 8 hours a week trying to find information that they need to help them do their job, or or worst case, they reinvent the wheel and build it from scratch just because they couldn't find it. And I think most clients are saying, well, look, you won't save the full 8 hours, but if you kind of move to Method Grid and make it really accessible and easy, then you're going after 2 to 4 hours of that a week, which for a massive, large organization, the numbers in terms of productivity start to account out. I think you're right. You call out the main one, which is, okay, firms, if you know it, kind of try and calculate the cost of poor quality and what it means to you. How much do you actually spend in rework? How much do you spend in kind of disputes and arguing with suppliers, when to get paid, all the kind of rework that comes from that? And really what we're trying to help organizations be is be fundamentally transparent in that and really reduce that cost of poor quality. Out of all the measures that anyone kind of exec buys, it's kind of, well, if you can reduce the number of claims, if you can reduce that, then that's much more significant benefit for us.
That cost of quality is a really good one, and actually it's a really good time to say that. I'm up in Glasgow at the moment. We're doing 2 days construction quality training with our teams up here, and actually all the data tells you the cost of quality is 21% in terms of your tight cost overruns. It's a significant percentage of project costs, and anything we can do to address quality will have a massive impact on overall performance.
Yeah, no, and then normally, yeah, like I said, that's the bigger number, is the cost of poor quality number. Right, guys, I think I've got a couple of minutes left. I'll call it kind of close. So, I mean, Mike, thank you so much, mate. That was fantastic. I really enjoyed the chat. So that was really good.
Thank you. It's good.
Cool. And guys, thanks for all the questions. That was really useful. Just to sort of help you, just to finish off. So there's a number of kind of ethos of Method Grid is that we kind of build resources to help you. So these slides will go out, I think, after the event. Tom will send them. So there'll be the link to the PACE local, the PACE national digital playbook. It's also the case study. For those that are kind of interested in what the academy looks like and what is our vision for how we connect e-learning to playbooks, my colleague Alice has built the video, and we launched that service in February. And for those that are interested in building world-class playbooks, yeah, in collaboration with all of our clients, we basically built this asset, which is a white paper that sort of talks about the process that you have to go through in terms of building that playbook. Definitely recommend that. As Mike mentioned, we've got a number of events and talks that we're doing just to build out the PACE digital roadshow. So we'll be at the Rio Innovation Conference on the 26th and 27th. So, and that's in ICC Wales. So please come along to that and say hello. Also, we're running individual team briefings on the 20th of March, 11th of April, and the 24th of April as well. They're much more focused at the supply chain. So I think they've already been set in the diary. So please encourage the teams to come along, and we'll go through the full detail of PACE Digital. And for those that joined GRIDtalk last month, very delighted to tell you that the Capability Formula Hub is now live on our website, so you can download the formula, the canvas, the playbook is available in the application. And for those tracking PS capabilities at a top level, there's also a kind of capability tracker as well. So that's all just available on the Capability Formula Hub. I think Tom's going to put the link in. So finally, obviously next month is about unlocking knowledge IP asset value. So please come along for that if you've got a spare hour on the 28th. And finally, GRIDtalk Live is we do 2 GRIDtalk Live events a year, one in April and then one in October. For everyone, I think the invites have gone out. So please, if you just want to get the tickets please just confirm that. If you need more tickets, please just contact Tom. And if you're interested in coming along to the event, you can see kind of who's coming along. I think a few more parties. They're very popular. Please reach out to Tom in the first instance if you'd be interested to come along and join us. And Arup have kindly hosting the event this year just due to capacity. Unfortunately, we've outgrown our Bath office, so please come along. It'd be a fantastic event. And I think I've overrun by 1 minute. So guys, thank you very much for your time. Really enjoyed the session. Mike, as always, mate, speak to you soon.
Thank you. Great to hear, everyone. Have a good day. Take care.
Take care.